I'll now call on Leader to make a reply on both motions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had listened to the speeches of Mr. Singh and Ms. Lim, Mr. Faisal Manap, and they've raised a number of points, but the points don't really address the core of this matter. They don't address the key findings of the Committee of Privileges. So I can understand tactically and strategically why you do that, because you've got this big, uncomfortable report that says these really strong statements. So it's probably, as a strategy, a good idea not to deal with those head-on, but to pick small little things here and there and to hope that other people will look at that. But since that is how it has been presented to this House, let me address all those small little points first before I come back to the key issue. I think the first thing Mr. Singh had said is that he did say that it's been something like 25 years since we've had to have proceedings before the Committee of Privileges. Yes, indeed. And it is a very shameful thing that we have to have a Committee of Privileges for something like this. For so many years, we were able to do without it. But now, after we have the office of the Leader of the Opposition, we have Workers Party coming in, and then we have to deal with this. So, yeah, it has been some time. But I suppose when these things happen, they serve as a good reminder to all of us about the values that we uphold and the things that we need to do. And in some ways, this process has been educational. The second thing Mr. Singh said was that the COP did not appear to want to get to the bottom of why Ms. Khan lied in Parliament. Actually, there are hundreds of pages in the COP report that are all directed to why did she lie on the 4th of October. The first part we know was off her own bat. It's undisputed. That was something she did of her own accord. She admits it, it's not in dispute. The big question was why it was done on the 4th of October, and reams of paper have been directed at precisely that question. So I don't think one can say that the Committee of Privileges did not want to get to the bottom of why she lied. The next thing Mr. Singh said was the fact that she had concocted the lie was not balanced against her evidence to the COP. What that allegation really is this. The allegation is that she's lied before. She must be lying again. In courts, the courts deal with this. It's known as the similar fact evidence rule. Just because somebody has done something once doesn't necessarily mean that they are guilty of the same thing again. If you want to get to the bottom of something, if you want to get to the truth of something, you always have to look at each instance by itself and weigh it objectively. And that is exactly what the Committee of Privileges did. The next thing Mr. Singh said was that what took center stage was the uncorroborated testimony that she was instructed to lie. I spent a great deal of time in my opening speech listing out that what exactly the factors were that the Committee of Privileges took into account in terms of corroborative testimony, contemporaneous documents, contemporaneous evidence, written documents, the evidence of other witnesses, and whether or not something made sense. So I don't think that that is a fair accusation to level against the Committee of Privileges. The next thing he mentioned was that there was selective nature of the COP report. He didn't mention certain documents, he said. But then, as we can see, when he made reference to certain WhatsApp messages, Minister Desmond Lee read out other WhatsApp messages. I mean, there was so much evidence, you can't possibly be referring to every single piece. But what is clear is that the committee took into account and considered all relevant documents. So the essence of the allegation by Mr. Singh is that the committee had cherry-picked the evidence. Well, Mr. Singh's a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. He knows that evidence that is given is considered by a tribunal. Relevant evidence is referred to. Not all evidence that is put in is relevant. And when you write your final report, you refer to relevant evidence. Tribunals, and in this case, the COP, doesn't necessarily have to put in everything that's submitted, but they did include a lot of documents, and the report does include many documents submitted by Mr. Singh, Ms. Lim, and Mr. Faisal. And if he feels that something is relevant and was not taken into account, he will have the opportunity to refer to it if this matter goes to court. But then, what's important is at this point of time, he shouldn't try to give the impression that the COP purposely left out certain things or cherry-picked evidence. I come now to Ms. Lim's speech just now. I think she made reference to the notes that she took during the disciplinary panel proceedings, and obviously because that piece of paper, those notes were very damaging to Mr. Singh. And so she sought to explain it, to put her interpretation on it, and to suggest that this wasn't really taken into account by the COP. That's not actually accurate. I think at paragraph 51 of the report expressly quoted her as saying that her notes had to be taken in totality to understand it. It said that Ms. Lim said she did not know the context in which Mr. Singh used the phrase. And essentially, the committee noted her position. So it's not as though the committee did not consider the things that Ms. Lim said just now. The other thing is Ms. Lim said much about the fact that the notes didn't just refer to the words, "it was your call." The notes also had the phrase, "did the need to tell the truth occur to you? Can't lie, right?" And she suggested that those notes were really in favor of Mr. Singh. That was dealt with at paragraph 55 of the report. Let me see if I can get this document. The way the committee dealt with it was they said that those questions were quite telling. If Mr. Singh had been very clear on the 3rd of October, then Mr. Singh would be saying, "I told you to tell the truth, and you did not. You went against my instructions in telling the truth to Parliament." That was a serious breach of party discipline. He would not be saying, as he did, "I have told you that it was your call. Why didn't it occur to you to tell the truth and can't lie, right?" So in short, the points that Ms. Lim talked about just now was something that the committee considered, and it's in the report. Then the next sort of strategy was really to cast some aspersions on the COP itself and to suggest that somehow there's something wrong with the composition of the COP. The composition of the COP is dealt with in the Standing Orders of Parliament in section 107. Let me just pull that up. And it says, it's Standing Order 107, subparagraph A1. There shall be a committee to be known as the Committee of Privileges, to consist of the Speaker as chairman and 7 members to be nominated by the Committee of Selection as soon as may be after its appointment, in such manner to ensure that, so far as is possible, the balance between the government benches and the opposition benches in Parliament is reflected in the committee. So in other words, what the standing orders seek to do is to make sure that the select committee, which is a standing select committee, it reflects the same balance that there is here in Parliament. And Mr. Singh has spoken many times about why don't we have more select committees and about the supremacy of Parliament. So all of these are in the rules which have been there for a long time. And these rules, if I recall correctly, they have been revised from time to time. And if I recall correctly, I believe Mr. Loh Tak Kiang was on the committee for the revision of the rules at one stage. They've always had an opposition member, and nobody has complained about the composition of the committee. And in fact, when we had to determine who would be the opposition representative on the Committee of Privileges, Mr. Dennis Tan was nominated by Mr. Singh, and he certainly did not complain at that time or say that he should have more opposition members. So it just really rather does sound as though if you don't like the outcome of the Committee of Privileges, then you complain about how it is composed when it was never an issue before. Then I think Ms. Lim talked about the length of the proceedings. Why was it necessary to question Mr. Singh for so long? The answer is that the length of time that it takes to do an inquiry or to question somebody really depends on the answers that they give. I have done cross-examination in court myself. The witnesses who give you the answers in a straightforward and straight manner actually go off very quickly. The ones who don't give a straight answer, the ones who you really have to extract the information from, those take a long time. In this case, Ms. Lim's evidence herself her evidence was relatively short because the answers that she gave were to the point. Then I should also say that she questioned how come there was no legal representation on the Committee of Privileges for the people who appeared before it. Well, the default position is that for Committee of Privileges, generally speaking, they do the questioning, but by special application where it's necessary, if there's good reason for it, witnesses can apply to bring outside counsel. But I think the more important point to remember here is that Mr. Singh's a lawyer, and so is Ms. Lim. Don't think they really needed external counsel to be able to answer the questions that were put to them, which were not particularly difficult, well within their ability to understand and respond to. So now I come to the point about what the speeches did not address. The speeches did not address the core findings of the Committee of Privileges, which was, why did it take so long to have the truth told to Parliament? I mean, you would think that from the time that it's disclosed to them, the first reaction should be, oh no, this is terrible, we better go back and clarify. But no, this matter dragged on for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and it only came about after the police had already put in their request for an interview, and it became clear that this issue was not going to go away. The other is this very puzzling thing about why there was no direct instruction to tell the truth. Because after all this evidence, and this is not disputed, there is no clear instruction from Mr. Singh or anybody else to say, Raisa, please go back to Parliament and tell them the truth. Instead, there's this passing of words, this take ownership, take responsibility, I will not judge you. I mean, how difficult is it to just say, Raisa, tell the truth? How difficult is it to do that? Not very. Anybody should know how you can do that. So, this business of asking Ms. Khan, being worried about, her telling her parents or have the parents found out. If that was so, how come nobody asked her whether she had told her parents? Why was no effort made to find out if she had cleared that so that you could come back to Parliament and tell the truth? And why wasn't their own party told about it? How do you have a disciplinary panel that's set up to sit in judgment upon somebody, to judge her for something where, in fact, she has already told you, you know what she has done from months back, but you're sitting there in judgment on her? I mean, these are questions that have not been answered, and these are pertinent questions. So that leaves us with a situation where we have to decide what to do. And as I wrap, let me just start or wrap where Mr. Singh began when he said, who did this House commit to the Committee of Privileges, Raisa Khan or the WP leadership? Now that's somewhat misleading. You see, under the standing orders and the way the procedure goes, when a complaint arises and it comes to Parliament's attention, Parliament has to deal with it somehow. You can't ignore it, right? So in this case, once Ms. Khan came to Parliament and admitted that she had lied, it had to be looked into. I referred it to the Committee of Privileges. The Committee of Privileges was inquiring into the complaint about her. But in the course of that, these things came up, and it became clear to the Committee of Privileges that there is a problem because they think that their 3 senior WP leaders were lying and had guided her to not tell the truth in Parliament until there was no other choice. Now, what is the Committee of Privileges supposed to do? Pretend it didn't happen? Ignore it? It can't do that. It was not set up to look into the 3 WP leaders. That part is correct. But if you are then seized with information or it comes to your attention that the 3 WP leaders have done something wrong, you have a duty, the Committee of Privileges has a duty to come back to Parliament and tell us which they have done in the report. And we here in this chamber now have a duty to consider it and to do something about it. And there are only 3 things we can do. 1, we can just say, I'm not going to look at it. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to deal with it. And that would be wrong. It would be wrong for all the reasons that the Prime Minister has said. It would be wrong because it would be an abdication of our responsibility, and it would be wrong because it's a rejection of our values. The second thing we can do is to say, okay, let's punish them straight away. But then Mr. Singh is saying that he denies this. He is saying that they didn't do these things. So he's actually objecting. And so you could ride roughshod, you could steamroll, but that's not the right thing to do either, because just like Ms. Raisa Khan was inquired into, somebody has to inquire into this. And there are only 2 ways. One is you set up another Committee of Privileges. And the COP has said they don't think it's going to get very far because they've pretty much heard what there is to hear. And if you go back, you're going to have the same thing. And not only that, there's probably going to be aspersions cast on the new Committee of Privileges. So for the more egregious, serious transgressions, in this case, the findings that Mr. Singh had lied and that Mr. Faisal Manap had prevaricated, refused to give documents, refused to answer questions, the recommendation is that those be referred to the public prosecutor. And the other things, for example, that Ms. Lim lied, that Mr. Manap lied, those we hold back until the public prosecutor has decided what to do. So whatever it is, we cannot run away from the fact that we have before us a report. The report has highlighted things that we cannot ignore, and we have to make a decision. And referring Mr. Singh and Mr. Manap to the public prosecutor is the fairest thing to do, because if they maintain their innocence, they will have a chance to vindicate themselves. They will be entitled to legal counsel, legal representation, and it will go before the courts, who are independent, and they need not fear that there is any political interference. So I think, Mr. Speaker, I have dealt with the various things that have been raised. The only thing I wanted to check with Mr. Singh was this, because I had understood when he spoke just now that there's some things that the Workers' Party, or he, agrees to. One is the finding against Ms. Raisa Khan for abuse of privilege. I think that is not disputed. The second thing is that the fine in respect of the untruths told on the 3rd of August, twice, that I think is not disputed, and they agree with that. What they don't agree with is the fine for the third time that she lied, the $10,000, because implicit in that was that she was acting on their guidance. So they don't agree with that, and then they don't want to vote on that. So I suppose what I'm asking Mr. Singh is if he can clarify that they would be prepared to vote in favor of the first two parts of the first motion, but not in favor of the last part, which imposes the $10,000 fine. And then in respect of the second motion, because I had heard him say that he wishes to clear his name and that he will go before, cooperate with the public prosecutor, I'm asking, is Mr. Singh prepared to agree to the part of the motion which says that he and Mr. Faisal Manap be referred to the public prosecutor? I can understand that they don't want to vote the other parts of the motion. So perhaps if Mr. Singh could clarify that part, and then we can think about how we can deal with the votes on the two motions.
Mr. Singh.
Mr. Speaker, just to confirm what Leader of the House is suggesting, indeed, for motion number 1, with regard to 2 Alpha and 2 Bravo, we will be voting in favor. And then for 2 Charlie, indeed, as I believe the leader said, that implicit in that we are going to vote no, and she is right, because implicit in that is an acknowledgement that our actions somehow mitigate the quantum. Now, for the very same reason, Leader of the House is right. Mr. Faisal Manap and myself have no objection to being referred to the public prosecutor. But, and this is a big but, we will still vote no to motion number 2, because in the same way it is implicit in motion number 1, 2C, it is also implicit in the second para that the basis of the referral to the PP arises from evidence uncovered at the COP, and we reject those findings. So I hope that's clear.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his clarifications. And so just to be sure that I have this correct. So for the second motion, the Leader of the Opposition and WP will be voting against it in its entirety. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
But important caveat is, as what I mentioned about Mr. Faisal and myself, we are prepared to be referred to the public prosecutor.
I understand. And for the first one, they would be prepared to vote in favor of the first paragraph. That's the taking note of the special reports. That's all right?
Leader, could you put that question again?
If you look at the first motion, the first resolution of the first motion is to take note of the special reports. Well, it's actually not resolution, but just says to take note of the special reports. So you don't have a problem with taking note of the special reports, right?
No objection.
Okay. And then paragraph 2, you would have no objection to paragraph 2A. That is the resolution that resolves that Ms. Raisa Khan is guilty of abuse of privileges of Parliament.
That is correct. 2 alpha, no objection.
Okay. And you have no objection to paragraph 2B?
The one that covers the fine of $25,000,
$25,000.
yes, no objection.
Okay. So it's really only in respect of the $10,000 fine?
Mr. Speaker, rather than standing up and sitting down, may I be allowed to just stand at the rostrum?
Please do.
Leader, please.
Yes. No, so I'm
put
just
your question
confirming
again.
that paragraphs 2A and 2B you agree with, and paragraph 2C you don't agree with.
That is correct.
Okay. If that is the case, normally, I'm not going to ask you anything else, so you may sit down. Normally, for a motion, when you vote for motion, you vote for the motion in its entirety. So if there are 3 things on the motion and you agree with 2, but not 1, normally you would vote against the entire thing, right? But there is a way to allow us to vote for 2A and 2B and remove 2C, which is voted on separately, if we lift the standing orders. And what I will do, with the Speaker's permission, would be to ask to lift the standing orders in respect to the first motion to allow the votes for 2A and 2B to be taken, and then for 2C to be taken separately, which will then record that the first 2 was unanimously passed, and the third one was rejected by the WP.
Please proceed.
I would have to ask for the procedural note. Would the clerks have a copy of the procedural note for this? Or if not, just give me a moment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I seek your consent? Second one is not because Mr. Speaker, may I seek your consent and the general assent of members present to move that the question on the first motion in respect of the Committee of Privileges report, recommendations in respect of Ms. Raisa Khan, be put and voted in 2 parts, that the first question to be put upon paras 1 and 2A-B of the motion, and that the second question to be put upon para 2C of the motion.
Leader, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that notwithstanding the standing orders, the question on the first motion in respect of the Committee of Privileges report, recommendations in respect of Ms. Raisa Khan, be put and voted in 2 parts. That the first question be put upon paras 1 and para 2A to B of the motion, and that the second question be put upon para 2C of the motion.
The question is as moved by the Leader of the House. As many as of the opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would not be seeking to lift the standing orders in respect to the second motion, since Mr. Singh has said that they would be not agreeing to any part of it, with the important caveat that they have put on record that he and Mr. Faisal are prepared to be referred to the public prosecutor. To clear his name.
Dr. Janil.
Mr. Speaker, may I propose that we proceed with the original amendments to the process that Leader had articulated to split the second vote, because there are other members in the House and they may have different views on the clauses as we've described. I would propose that we do split the second motion into 2 votes.
So as moved by the Leader of the House, shall we proceed?
Sir, I think what Mr. Janil Puthucheary is asking me to do is to also move to allow the second motion to have split votes. The reason being that there may be other members in the House who may wish to, who may not wish to vote it in its entirety. So if you will permit, I will then move a motion now to seek that the second motion be allowed to be voted in split manner as well.
Please do.
Let me just make sure that I understand Mr. Puthucheary correctly. Mr. Speaker, may I seek your consent and the general assent of members present to move that the question on the second motion in respect of the Committee of Privileges report, recommendations in respect of Mr. Pritam Singh, Mr. Faisal Manap, and Ms. Sylvia Lim, be put and voted in two parts. That the first question be put upon paragraphs 1 and 2 of the motion, and that the second question be put upon paragraph 3 of the motion.
Leader, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that notwithstanding the standing orders, the question on the second motion in respect of the Committee of Privileges report, recommendations in respect of Mr. Pritam Singh, Mr. Faisal Manap, and Ms. Sylvia Lim be put and voted in two parts, that the first question be put upon paras 1 and 2 of the motion, and that the second question be put upon paragraph 3 of the motion.
The question is as moved by the Leader of the House. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.